And this has to relate to a guest that we actually had on our show, Kshama Sawant. She's the councilwoman in the city of Seattle. She's with Socialist Alternative. And the city of Seattle council passed police tear gas ban. So this is fantastic news. This is breaking news. Seattle City Council on Monday unanimously passed a ban on police using chokeholds and tear gas following an uproar of how the Seattle Police Department used tear gas on demonstrators. Demonstrators have been grievously injured by these weapons, said Councilmember Kshama Sawant, who proposed both bans on June 5th. Mayor Jenny Durkin announced a 1-month ban on tear gas at protests. Days later, the Seattle Police Department said demonstrators threw objects at police, and Police Chief Carmen Best authorized tear gas to be used again.
It's always amazing. It wasn't on camera, but they threw objects, I promise.
Last Friday, a federal judge found police used excessive force on peaceful protesters and violated their free speech rights. I guarantee the police would not have done that to those, militiamen who are storming all the state capitals and yelling in police faces. No. So here's the thing, and mind you, the police force in Seattle used chemical weapons that are outlawed by the Geneva Convention. So the rest of the world doesn't do that. But yet our American police did that to American citizens. That's, okay. So, Gunnar, would you kindly play that video that's actually in the article, please?
Of course.
Has passed a ban on police chokeholds and is about to vote on a ban on police using tear gas. But police watchdogs say that could be even more dangerous. Congress 7's Graham Johnson is tracking the debate.
There's a groundswell of opposition to Seattle police using tear gas on protesters. The city's deputy inspector general tells me her office would not oppose a ban on tear gas during demonstrations, but says the council legislation is much broader and needs close review. When Seattle police used tear gas on demonstrators for the first time since 1999, city council criticism began immediately.
Demonstrators have been grievously injured by these weapons.
Kshama Sawant proposed a ban on police use of chemical weapons and chokeholds.
Some of these weapons, like tear gas, are banned from use in war.
People calling in to today's council meeting support a ban.
It has made me fearful to continue to protest.
On Friday, a federal judge found Seattle police used excessive force on peaceful protesters and violated the free speech rights of thousands of people. The judge ordered a 2-week ban on tear gas, pepper spray, and foam-tipped projectiles. The city's inspector general and director of the Office of Police Accountability say it is their duty to take those 2 weeks to review policies and make recommendations. The OPA director wrote a ban passed now could result in SPD being functionally unable to police large-scale riots or require them to do so with no tools other than batons and firearms.
All right, stop it.
Last week, the head of the police...
Stop it for 1 minute. Okay, so there's no way they can look me straight in the eye and say, well, where was, how come you guys were so held back when those militia were all over the state capitals? How come the police didn't use tear gas then? I mean, you obviously held restraint. What were you afraid of? Did you know some of those guys? Or were you afraid you were going to get shot back?
Oh, they were just using their Second Amendment. They were just, Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, their Second Amendment and First Amendment rights. Okay, well then those peaceful protesters deserve the exact same treatment. I don't know what. You can't shoot tear gas at a bunch of people anymore? You can't get off on that anymore? Well, we took away any kind of feelings that you have, so you like to hurt people? You know what? Too bad, so sad. Cry me a goddamn river. As far as I'm concerned, to the people of Seattle, do what the people of Minneapolis did and hashtag defund the police. Because at no way, any point in time, should that be accepted in an American society where our police force are basically tear gassing American citizens. They're not some evil entity. They're not some sort of bad guys. Those are American citizens that are being abused and hurt. What kind of society do we have? So when we get this criticism from international leaders, hey, America, get your act together. Defund the police in Seattle, and it should be done here in Chicago too, because the police budgets are really high. Hey, you ever wonder why we don't have money for schools? I wonder why.
So, so there's a couple things on this that I think need to be addressed. First of which is they're always like, oh, the protesters are so violent and edgy and all these things. Then you watch the video and the police are shooting into peaceful people, and then the people are like, hey, don't shoot at us. And then the police are like, look at how violent they're being by yelling at us. It's like, This seems like a predictable thing to happen, just like we've been talking about before. In addition, so you have the autonomous zone that exists in Seattle, which, of course, on Fox News is like the same as like the no-go zones that they were so terrified about that never really existed in the first place. And they're the Antifa people, which, again, Antifa is really just like a uniform. It's like wearing like a Halloween costume in a degree. It's just like black mask. It's, Antifa. So what was really funny is I was watching a number of videos just kind of going through like protesters going into these autonomous zones, and it's, you know what, really quiet, actually pretty nice. Like, it's like there's no violence in this group of violent altercating people. Now, there were ironically a few people that were acting like police to police the area to keep police out of, which is its own contradiction, let's say, that I thought was very funny. I wish someone would point out to them that, hey, you know, you're kind of doing the same thing that you're, anyway, separate thing. But so yeah, so what do we have? We have police that all they know how to do, like we saw in the previous video, like we see every day, is escalate. And then when things escalate and they cause people to fight because, you know, they're beating up their friends and like shooting their dog and, you know, things of that nature, then people respond. And then police again, oh, it's too violent. We have to use tear gas and rubber bullets. By the way, I want to throw this out there. I'm happy that they're not using tear gas anymore and all that other stuff, really, especially for people with asthma, which is very, very, very negative for them. I don't know why we're using rubber bullets. Why? I mean, I've played paintball when I was younger. Why don't we just use paintballs? If we're gonna use something, why not use the thing? Because so rubber bullets, you're supposed to shoot at the ground and have them bounce up after they lose speed at protesters. And the police are like, no, we're gonna shoot you at like 5 feet away and like break your eye because we shot you in the eye. Whereas again, just use paintballs. I don't get, it just seems like, why do they have to be like, well, if we can't use guns, we have to use something that causes severe bodily harm and causes enormous welts when they could just use paintballs or even anything like that. But again, the core issue is still the same. They don't know how to de-escalate if their life counted on it. So how can you, it doesn't matter what the thing is. They're like, well, we could use firearms, we can use tear gas, we can physically hit them with batons. They're still going to escalate. It's not going to matter. They're still going to escalate. So I would say to police, the kid makes a good point. If you have people that are holding guns, I'm not saying that these Antifa people or whatever should have guns, because I don't think that helps the situation. It just is becoming exactly what you fight. But the police need to stop bitching and moaning about a job that's dangerous inherently. They're way more dangerous jobs. One of the most dangerous in the area of Washington is logging, which is one of the most dangerous jobs. Cops, I hate when people are like, oh, it's the most dangerous job. You gotta keep up. No, your job as a police officer is not to get home to your family. It's to make sure I get home to mine. You're supposed to sacrifice with yourself. That's what it's supposed to come with the position. More cops should be dying and less citizens should be, because they're protecting them and it costs them their lives. That's something. You know what I would think? If a cop jumped in front of a bullet that was going to hit a black woman, I think the community would praise that cop. As it should be, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, definitely, you know, can't agree with more what you guys said. You know, I just, I don't know what more to add other than tear gas. I mean, that's against the Geneva Convention for a reason. You know, that's been used against protesters in other countries. The U.S. has decried it. So we're definitely losing standing on the world stage. I wanted to point out that, you know, like South Korea, you know, they got their president recently, you know, their first woman president ended up in jail after countless of peaceful protests, and liberals kept saying, oh, we should protest like South Korea did. We should protest like South Korea did. Well, South Korea got to protest that way after decades of violent protests by students and activists for democracy and for rigged elections, and to hold officials accountable, so that when they got together in mass, you know, by hundreds of thousands, they didn't have to act up, because, you know, the country's been here before. Specifically, actually, with that president's father, was a big point. So, like the U.S., you know, Seattle, we're seeing ground. The mayor's acquiescing to tear gas, finally catching up to the Geneva Convention. New York, you know, we're seeing Cuomo telling protesters to go home, even though we're still seeing the cops act up. We're seeing grounds in Minneapolis. But again, just to your accuracy, you know, your prediction about what's happening in Louisville, you know, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend is looking at charges for shooting at the police, and the police culture is still running. You know, despite all the chaos that's happening, the thin blue line is that they're holding it together. They're following the rules. It's why you're seeing a different dynamic in Louisville play out. And again, to your other point, this is intentional that you have protests of people, touting their Second Amendment rights, being led away peacefully, for right-wing, cop-adjacent friendly protests kind of deal. And then the police purposely agitating protests that are for Black lives and trying to paint that entire movement as a violent movement to be suppressed.
Yep. All right. And I think as a final note, too, look, we got to break this system. The protests cannot stop. The minute we stop and slow down, we give the establishment all the breathing space it needs to re-coordinate itself. And then you're going to have people like Jane quoting Stacey Abrams saying, no, defund the police is too divisive. Transform the police.
It's funny that
Buzzwords.
it's too divisive. It's also working. A lot of cities are kind of doing stuff.
If it's so divisive, Jank, why is it working? Why is it Seattle and Minneapolis and numerous other cities?
I'm going to Jank-splain for everyone. I think I know what he's saying. The clubs that I'm now invited to, now that I'm on the upper crust, do not think this is a fair and balanced way to handle things. So people should just meander. And Jank's like, okay, I will carry that message.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure, you're talking about Antifa, they have it's just a uniform. I just wanted to showcase what that uniform looks like.
Oh, look at that. Good job, Mr. Trump. All he needs is the mask.
Oh, God, that was great.
So that's it's.
worry,
Oh,
I'm
Jose,
coughing.
just for your
Coughing 'cause of
context,
laughing.
He's coughing, not coofing.
It's
No
it's
coofing.
it's not the wrong.
There's a no coof zone.
Jose. It's
not the
Baron
wrong.
Trump.
Yeah, not much more to say. I'm just going to pre-curse this with all the commentary. Hillary Clinton's kind of done. She's hanging on to a Democrat. That's right. She's trying to cling on to a race. AOC has been, kind of trying to, again, AOC's kind of taken a back seat in movement work, but she's still very symbolic in the fact that if who she's endorsing is winning over people that Pelosi or Clinton is endorsing, you can actually try to track some progressive movement into Congress, which a majority of our problems come from. Hillary Clinton delivered her first Democratic primary endorsement, her first and only, I hope, in 2020 House race on Monday, throwing her support behind Representative Elliot Engels of New York, who is trying to fend off a serious challenge from his left after more than 3 decades in Congress. I have worked with Elliot Engels as First Lady, as Senator from New York, and as Secretary of State. Mrs. Clinton said in a statement provided to the New York Times, every step of the way, his number one priority has always remained the same, delivering to his constituents. Political talk for billionaire class. The endorsement puts Mrs. Clinton on the opposite side of a wave of progressives, where she's very comfortable being all the time, who are backing Mr. Engels' leading challenger, Jamal Bowman, a middle school principal, including Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, Representative Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, the Working Families Party, Justice Democrats, and Move On, the progressive advocacy group. On Tuesday morning, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, who's been considered by former Russian President Joseph Biden, spousal running mate, also endorsed Mr. Bowman. Oh, come lately, but she's here. Mr. Engel, who represents the 16th district of the Bronx and Westchester, has served in Congress since 1989. Faced criticism, oh my God, that is more than 3 decades. Faced criticism this spring for his absence from New York during the coronavirus pandemic. When he returned for the news conference at the start of June, Mr. Engel could be heard on camera angling for a chance to speak. If I didn't have a primary, I wouldn't care, he said twice. The reporting prompted a surge of support from Mr. Bowman, who announced on Monday that his campaign had raised $750,000 in the first 15 days of June, half the total he had raised in the entire campaign. Shortly after the news, Mrs. Clinton endorsement broke, Mr. Bowman posted an animated GIF on Twitter of President Barack Obama brushing off his shoulders and a link to a donation page. Mr. Obama has not endorsed in the race. Which Dave Wasserman, who handicaps congressional races and the House editor of Nonpartisan Political Report, said on this month Mr. Engel was the next House incumbent in serious danger of losing a primary. Only one Democratic incumbent has lost a primary so far in 2020. Representative Dan Lipinski, my representative, good riddance. Dan Lipinski has lost who opposed abortion rights and lost in a rematch to Marie Newman, whom he had narrowly defeated 2 years earlier. Mr. Bowman's chances in New York improved this month when one of Mr. Engel's other challengers, Adam Gregorius, dropped out and endorsed Mr. Bowman. Mrs. Clinton, who lives in a neighboring district, It's the latest in a string of establishment Democrats to announce their support in the effort to save Mr. Engel, who is the chairman of the powerful House Foreign Affairs Committee. Other recent endorsements include Nancy Pelosi, Majority Whip James Clyburn. Oh my God. Okay, I'm not going to go through all that. Long story short, Mr. Engels is in more trouble than he anticipated. He got caught on hot mic. He was acting very lazy that day to even be caught on hot mic saying such terrible things. It's how unserious he took this challenge. Interesting to note that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders all jumped during that week to help Mr. Bowman. And now we see that the establishment is responding. There's a lot of internal tug and war. I know a lot of people are over the electoral politics of it all. I think it's important to track these things so that we know where the real inflection points to drive energy at, to strike, and certainly putting more nails in the Clinton coffin can't hurt. So
anytime we can put more nails in that coffin is a good day.
So that she doesn't rise up. But I think, again, Elliot Engel, I think you've been given the Hillary kiss of death, no pun intended. But I think that's the end of your campaign. And the thing is, since he doesn't care about his constituents, why should his constituents care about him or anything else that he does? Hey, dude, don't let the door hit you as you walk out. Yeah. So get out.
And before we go and move on, I think that Jose is right. Like, as you know, we have our issues with AOC. There's no question. But I think she's still way better than just about everyone else in Congress. Yeah. So, So there we go. I'll take it.